And he was like, your daughter needs a mother. And he couldn't have been more right. And I went into treatment again. And this time I knew I've never been that broken.
Welcome to another edition of Recovery Happens. My name is Patrick Patterson, Center Manager for BW Rock. September is National Recovery Month, and we want to thank you. Today we're going to be sitting down with Mandie as she offers hope to encourage recovery.
Life as a child was pretty good. I grew up with two younger brothers. I went to private schools. My mom is a nurse, has been my whole life. My father is a chiropractor and has his own practice and is pretty successful. I went through, I'm a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was 12. So before that, I remember a lot of happy times. My dad remarried and I now have two younger sisters also. So I have 4 younger siblings. My addiction started when I was prescribed Adderall, as I was 12 when I was put on Adderall, and that's kind of where I started to fall in love with prescription medication. I started abusing it. By the time I was 15, I was in school selling it. I went to an all-girl Catholic school in high school and ended up leaving there and going to a public school for the last 2 years just because my behavior was out of control. By the time I was 17 was the first time that I went into treatment. It was pretty much anything that would make me feel any way other than who I am is what I was interested in. So, from abusing prescription pills, not only amphetamines, but any prescription I could get my hands on, to smoking weed, to drinking. And drinking really did something for me even as an adolescent. I remember the first time that I got drunk, I was like, this is it. This is that feeling that I'm looking for of just wanting to disappear. When I first came out here, in 2013, after treatment, I decided to move away from the Wayne County area and try something different. So I came out to Port Huron to restart my life, and things were good at first. I got a sponsor and did steps and went to meetings and did all the things, but I was kind of putting my own twist on what I thought recovery was, because I eventually moved out, fell in love with someone, got married, stopped going to meetings, got pregnant, had a child, and then when I distanced myself from everything that I knew about recovery, I eventually used again. And when I did, I always knew that I had a problem and I needed to stop, but it was like a white knuckling situation where I thought that I could reel it back in, and that didn't work. My addiction led me down a very dark path. My husband and I were trying to balance each other out with, one of us using, one of us not using, and it was just really not a good situation. 2016, on March 28th, I was incarcerated due to my addiction, and they pulled me out of my holding cell, and I thought I was going in front of a judge, and they led me into a room and informed me that my husband had overdosed and passed away, and that they were going to take my daughter from me. And that's something I was never prepared to hear. And at that point, I became willing to do whatever it took to get my child back, to get me better, to just continue to move on. So I came back, and I went into treatment. I went in front of a judge, and I remember telling him about what happened and thinking that he would let me out to go make arrangements. And he said, your husband overdosed due to his addiction, and you're incarcerated because you can't stop drinking. And he was like, your daughter needs a mother. And he couldn't have been more right. And I went into treatment again. And this time I knew I've never been that broken. I was just willing to do whatever anyone told me to do at that point because I didn't know how to look up even. It's a lot to go through. So I had to fight to get my daughter back, and I did successfully. They closed my case out, telling me that I was one of the fastest cases they've ever had. Everyone was really proud of me, of all of the things that I had seemingly overcome. But unfortunately, the entire time that was happening, I was never focusing on what I needed to. My disease was always there looming and waiting for me because I was doing everything on the surface again and thinking that it was going to fix all of my problems. So after all of that happened, once the anniversary of my husband's death came around, I decided that I was going to have wine with dinner one night. And 3 days later, I was arrested for driving intoxicated with my daughter in the vehicle. And at that point, I was facing termination of my rights. I know CPS and foster care was beside themselves of how a person could do something like that. I felt like a monster. I felt like shame and guilt and beyond. I had just ruined everything, and I really didn't know how I was going to come back from that. Because of the relationships I've made in recovery, I had women come with me and sit in front of a board of strangers who were going to decide if I was going to be able to be a mother or not. And by the grace of God, these women spoke on my behalf, and these strangers decided to give me another chance at life. And that was all that was all I needed, that was it. And I knew that at that point that I would do whatever it took. I would do anything because I never thought that I was capable of putting my daughter I love more than anything in the world, through that after just losing her dad the way that she did. So from that point, I just surrendered everything. All of my old ideas of thinking were just gone and to the wayside. I told my sponsor I would do whatever she told me to. So through all of this process, I decided that recovery was a passion of mine, and I wanted to help other people get through what I have only been blessed to. I believe now that I've been spared to help pull other people out of this deal, and that lights a fire in my soul. So I now work at a treatment center, and it is an amazing blessing that sometimes on my way home from work, I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude, I just cry, because I remember being that person sitting in those seats and never believing or having hope that things would get different or be better. And there was just my entire journey of recovery from the beginning. I constantly had these seeds planted, and some took a lot longer to bloom than others, but it does happen over time. And so my recovery has been that of a lot of pain and heartache. So today, I get to be a mom. I just kissed my daughter on my way here. Right before I came here, I get to be with her full-time every day instead of part-time, which is what I dealt with for a while. I make the decisions about her future and what's going on, which is another thing that I wasn't able to do for a while. My life is nothing short of a miracle, and I get to go to a treatment center and help other people figure out where they're going and which way they're taking, and I get to share my experience, strength, and hope with people, which my story, as well as a lot of others I've heard, are heartbreaking, and some people need that hope, that you can come back from anything. And I heard someone before say, if you get knocked down and you can look up, you can get up. And that is what it takes. As long as you can still get up, you can still do this deal.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Recovery Happens. Blue Water Recovery and Outreach Center is not a state-funded program. We are privately funded by individual donors like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, please do so by going to bwroc.org and click Donate. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Blue Collar Construction.